Hey, and welcome back to my channel where we're going over every single spoiler for the upcoming Raging Echoes League. Today is day 12, and let's get right into it. So today, Jagex did first reveal a small selection of tasks, and so I'll touch on that really quick. There were some specific changes around Relic passives and other benefits we're going to get, so I'm going to touch on these other changes first, and then we're going to get into each of the Relic passive tiers that Jagex did share with us, and lastly, I'll give you my final thoughts. So Jagex partnered up with the wiki team to get us all the tasks directly onto the wiki page, which is really nice. You can go in there and start kind of ordering them based off of areas and difficulty and points. There's already people who have created a strategy guide on how to chain tasks, so I'm going to leave that in the description below, so definitely check that out. As it gets updated, I might go ahead and update some of those posts. And yeah, if you have any good strategy guides on the ordering of the tasks to go about first, definitely leave them in the comments below. That'd be really helpful to share. I think with multiple people creating different strategy guides and different orderings, that will be best, so we're not fighting over that same resources when we're trying to follow these tasks. For example, killing spiders is a task in Lumbridge, as well as killing rats, and if we're all going after the same rat or the same spider, that can be frustrating. Now remember, Jagex did reveal that there's a quality of life improvement for faster respawn times, and so some of these tasks will be better. And like I said, as the day progresses, as you log in, the people who get on right at the first dot of the launch will be able to do those tasks, and then over time they're not going to be killing those rats and spiders, so it should really fall off. It might just be a little bit frustrating in the beginning, so I am hoping that multiple people are creating multiple different kind of task ordering guides, and so we're kind of spreading ourselves out to all the different tasks that we need to complete, and so we're not fighting over those resources. So yeah, if you have any good links to any good strategies, definitely leave them in the comments below. So other changes, before we get into the passives, I want to talk about this first. So minigame modifier, Marks of Grace, Hallowed Marks, Brimhaven vouchers, and Stardust now benefit from the minigame multiplier. I'll talk about what the multiplier is at the specific levels and tiers that you unlock it, but this is really phenomenal. I think this also stacks with the agility relic we just saw yesterday, and so you're going to get double benefits pretty much overall, which is really nice. Remember, everyone has access to the Brimhaven course, in addition to that, we also have access to Stardust. Now, you may not be able to use your Stardust for anything unless you have Ascarnia, and so just keep that in mind. Some of this is beneficial, some of that is not so beneficial to everyone, right? Region dependent. Drop rate modifier, Twisted Ancestral Color Kits, Holy Ornament Kits, Sanguine Ornament Kits, and Awakener's Orbs now benefit from the drop rate modifier. This is really good because we are a boss-specific, content league this time around, and so farming DT2 Awakener bosses will be good, and so I think the Awakener Orb specifically is very nice. They did share in the quality of life improvements that the pet transmogs will carry on from league to league, but unfortunately, I don't believe these item transmogs would carry on from league to league. So this is really cool. That way you can kind of stand out if you get these drops with your, epic weapons and Fashionscape. But I'm not super excited about them. I think it's just really nice to kind of just show off your character at the end of the league. But other than that, there's really no added benefit other than that Awakener's Orb. Lastly, we have Clue Scrolls. Every clue scroll you receive, including clue geodes, clues in a bottle, and clue nests, will drop as a stackable clue box. Now, there is a hidden secret nerf here that when you were to drop clues from nests that were easy or higher, you would get a nest in addition to it when you extracted the clue out. Now you will no longer get that nest. I think this is a very minor kind of nerf to the game, but it is something to just keep in mind. I think this overall is really nice. It was really annoying when you were fishing and you had to click the bottle to get the clue and do that. Now Jagex just completely bypasses that and you just get that stackable clue box. And this does mean that all clues will be stackable. It is confirmed, which is phenomenal. Lastly, there is one thing I want to talk about, the minigame modifier that was added to the FAQs, and I'll have a link to the FAQ below as well, which is, will Pest Control and Soul Wars be the same as previous leagues, and XP rewards from these minigames will be disabled in Leagues 5. This is, I actually think, really phenomenal. I know a lot of people last league just went to Soul Wars to get a ton of experience early on, and same thing with Pest Control. I mean, I got my 99 prayer at Pest Control. It was absolutely phenomenal and busted. I think that this time around, that Jagex, by nerfing these activities, has made the game focus on playing the game as opposed to just chasing these mechanics, right? I know there was a lot of like FOMO and feeling bad that you weren't doing these games. And to be honest, I don't find these games to be peak content. So I'm kind of glad Jagex just did completely away with them. I think we have a lot of good passives and boosts to get into that will fix the concerns that players might have by losing these. So let's get right into those now. So tier 1. Okay, so League's XP multiplier is 5x. Items from eligible sources will be 2x common, and run energy will never drain whilst running. These things we've seen in the past. Those are pretty much identical to previous leagues. Nothing has changed. So 2x drops, 5x XP to start with, and infinite run, right? Those things are not changing. What is new is farming ticks will occur every minute instead of every 5 minutes. Now, what does that mean? That means your trees will plant and grow 5 times faster. Overall, farming is 5x faster. Now, if you're thinking about going overgrown and that passive relic that just automatically plants and regrows trees, one concern we had was, hey, how fast will those trees come? How fast will that XP come, right? It's obviously really good for herbs and allotment patches, right? Getting those resources infinitely and automatically, which was really nice. But if it is slow, then, even being logged in for 6 hours a day, how many herbs are you and allotment resources are you actually gathering? Well, now you're going to be gathering 5x as many, right? This is a straight buff to all farming for everyone, depending on your region. Now, if you don't have a lot of farming things in your region, this might be not so beneficial to you. But overall, super, super buff. I like it. What this does mean is your herb runs, depending on how many herb patches you have, kind of become active. Pretty much, completing an entire herb run for me in the main game takes, 5 to 8 minutes, maybe 10 minutes on like how lazy and slow I am at clicking that day. But whatever that is, your herbs are going to grow 5x faster. So by planting all of these, planting your tree seeds, doing a thing here and there, it'll be time to just go back and harvest. So I think this isn't really something I'm going to do at the tier 1 relic state. I think once I collect a bunch of seeds, I'll just go and do some hardcore farming runs. Also, at a later on, we'll have a much higher XP multiplier. But I'm kind of glad that we get this early on because it does get us some little or bit, quality of life early access. And you just get to keep this benefit throughout the whole entire league, which is really nice. Okay, next up we have this minigame boost. Now, minigame boost, there's 4x. Previously, we saw minigame boost to be at tier 2, and it was only at 3x. So this pretty much means that all the benefits you want to get from minigames, and we saw that buff to minigames like the Brimhaven Agility Arena, right? That will immediately come out right off the gate at tier 1. This is really, really good, especially if you're going to, at tier 2 or tier 3, unlock that Agility Relic. All of that is multiplicative, and so it's going to be really nice to get that boost. And I'm kind of glad Jagex just put this in the front. It just makes you like, oh, let me have to wait till the next tier of Relic to go do these mini games. No, you can just do them right off the back. Those of you who are rushing Winter Tot, good luck to you. You're going to get the 4x boost. Okay, tier 1 to tier 2. So tier 2, you go from 5 to 8x multiplier. Now, we saw that drops used to also increase over time, and XP was increasing linearly, right? This time around, we only see one passive buff at tier 2, which is the 5 to 8x. So what would you focus on from getting from tier 1 to tier 2? Remember, when we log in, we all start at tier 1, right? And we want to get to tier 2. Tier 2 is really quick. It can be as quick as, I think, like 20 minutes maybe. It can be as slow as an hour, just depending on what tasks you prioritize. I think this is the point where you really want to focus those miscellaneous tasks. I know there's a task for like running up one of the Lumbridge northern ladders or staircases, right? I think Jagex just wants us all to run up to the north side and do that. Cool, we'll do that. Okay, we'll get that task done. It's these types of tasks that you want to do early on. A lot of these will be early points. They'll be really easy. You're going to spawn in Lumbridge. They're going to be right there. And you're going to get to tier 2 really quickly, right? All XP is getting a huge boost at tier 2. So I wouldn't really focus on like trying to just immediately start cutting trees and getting that experience and trying to get points from like leveling your wood cutting. I'd really focus on these other miscellaneous tasks as well. And so remember to reference those sheets that we're talking about in the comments below on like the priority and the fast tasks that we can complete to get to tier 2 as soon as possible. So at tier 3, we have a huge change, but before we get to tier 3, let's talk about how we're going to go from tier 2 to tier 3. At tier 2 and tier 3, you get that 5 to 8 XP multiplier, so that's a good time to start picking up those skilling quests and just focusing on more tasks. If you wanted to go AFK and get some breakfast or some lunch and chop some logs, it's a good time to start doing things like that. You know, burning those logs for fire making XP. It's a good time to kind of just do some overall basic early on tasks, but you can start getting into those XP oriented tasks, and that will obviously get you levels and skills. And once you hit certain level thresholds, like level 10, level 20, level 30 into your skills, you'll also get some points. In addition to that, just keep following that task list that we talked about, and there's going to be a lot of points in there that you can unlock really quickly to get from tier 2 to tier 3. So tier 3, what is the big change? Combat experience, including hit points and prayer, has a 2x multiplier, and this is multiplicative to all the other modifiers. This is absolutely bonkers, right? And talking about that FAQ about the nerf to pest control and to soul wars, we don't care about that anymore, okay? Because this 2x, in addition to the 8x that we got at tier 2, is already 16x. If you think about previous leagues, 16x was the max multiplier we got at tier 7 or tier 8 relics. Now we're getting that immediately at tier 3 for combat skills. So pretty much, this is why it's like I wasn't talking about training those combat skills at tier 1 and tier 2. This is where the XP just becomes absolutely nuts. So we're getting equivalent to tier 7 and tier 8 previous past league passive effects for these. And this is where you want to pretty much, I think, start doing your combat training, right? In addition to that, Bigger and Badder is unlocked from Slayer for free. Now, there are Slayer monsters like Pyre Fiends that already have a superior variant, and so you can already start doing some early Slayer and getting superior monsters, right? Now, that doesn't mean you're going to necessarily get that imbued hard drop this early on, but, you know, whatever it is, you're going to get those Slayer monsters. Your Slayer points are 5x and from tasks, and you don't have to do 5 tasks to start earning points. So your first task will immediately start earning points, right? Obviously, you know, don't go to Turiel, wait till you get to like Vanaka or something else better. But whatever you have, you know, just get that task. This is where you can start training your combat. This is also a great time to do those combat XP quests like Vampire Slayer. That 3x or that 8x into this 2x multiplier, that 16x multiplier is going to be absolutely nuts for a Slayer, for a Vampire Slayer quest. Right? So overall, super phenomenal. And lastly, the last thing is Slayer Superior spawn at a rate of 1 to 50. We've seen this in the past. I'm glad Jagex is bringing this back. This league is about Slayer monsters. A lot of the Echo bosses are Slayer monsters, and so they are Slayer gated. So I'm really glad that Jagex is bringing this boost really early on. You're going to start doing tier 3 probably on your first day, and you're going to just be blasting monsters and getting that Slayer level up. So once you unlock the regions where you have your Slayer Echo bosses, you're going to be able to go kill the variants and just get awesome drops. It's super phenomenal. Really excited about this tier 3. I think this is a really good like threshold to kind of aim for getting into the combat training. So at tier 4, how are you going to go from tier 3 to tier 4? Like I said, all those Slayer tasks, all those combat training, and don't forget, we also have combat masteries that'll make the Slayer grind and the combat training much faster as well. So definitely focus on getting those unlocked as well. So things like killing the giant, getting maybe to 100 combat, getting, you know, those 100 combat level monsters killed like blue dragons and things like that. Focus on getting those things completed. And I think just by doing that, you're going to unlock a ton of points. And if that's not enough, definitely look at those task lists that we talked about linking below to get those last bit of points to get to tier 4. Right, tier 4 is absolutely phenomenal as well. So at tier 4, items from eligible sources will be 5x as common. Now, we saw in previous leagues that we always saw this linear progression of drop rates. So you had like 2x to 3x to 4x to 5x, and 5x was usually unlocked at like tier 7 or tier 8 or tier 6. It was much later on, and Jagex was really thinking about that linear progression system. And I'll talk about that kind of in the final steps. This pretty much means is that as soon as you get to tier 3, you start doing combat training. Combat training levels your stats up in preparation to kill monsters and get those drops. At tier 4, you're going to get that 5x multiplier, and that's going to be be absolutely phenomenal, right? So that's what I think is the progression that Jagex is thinking for us. Do some early skills, do some quests, get into combat, get your drops, right? This is a great time that if you're going Varlamore to go to Moons of Peril and get the drops there, or if you're going Mauritania, go to Barrows and get those drops there. In addition to that, you also have minigame points are received at 8x. This pretty much means to all the things we talked about earlier, from the Marks of Grace to the Hallowed Marks to all of the minigames like Wintertot and things like that. So if you were doing some Wintertot and you got some early levels and you took a break, this is also a decent time to kind of go back to get some more points there. Or you can do the other minigames that if you have like Desert and go to Temperos and things like that. Overall, really, really phenomenal. Tier 4 is looking ultra juicy. I know that I'm pretty much going to rush into Barrows. I'm pretty sure a Mauritania is a definite choice of mine. Probably a second, a region unlock. And so I'm definitely going to set myself up to go to Mauritania to get Barrows items. Tier 5. So how do we go from Tier 4 to Tier 5? So now we're actually kind of progressing. Like I said, if I'm doing Barrows, I'm probably getting into the mid game. And then from like the early to mid game, it's really up to your choice and the regions you have and your goals for leagues. And so at this point, just keep focusing on doing that early to mid game content. There's a bunch of tasks associated to that, doing those early and, medium diaries as well. Also, quests are really phenomenal, right? We're already at the 8x multiplier. In addition to that, you have that 2x for combat training. So it's going to be super fast training. All of those quests that give massive XP drops are going to be crazy. And if you're holding off on some of them, at Tier 5, our XP multiplier goes from 8 to 12x. So that's going to be even more bonkers, right? And so if you're holding off on some combat training, this 12x becomes 24x, and so you're going to still get massive XP drops. Let's say you held off on like Sins of the Father as a quest or something like that. That's going to be a huge bump at Tier 5, right? But again, I wouldn't necessarily hold off on that. You're already getting such a massive boost at Tier 4. Whatever you need to do to go from Tier 4 to Tier 5, it's going to be awesome. So that's all I'm going to say for anything from Tier 4 to Tier 5 and so on. Just that's up to you depending on the regions and the goals you have. It's probably a good time to go kill Jad. There's a bunch of points there, things like that. Just obviously it's going to be a little bit gear dependent, but Tier 4 fixes our chances to get that gear like Barrows. And so using that gear, going to kill Jad is going to be phenomenal. Don't forget we have the combat masteries being leveled up on the side. So if you finish a tier of Relics, maybe you go and see if you can do another combat mastery task and get another unlock there, right? Don't forget, you're going to have to kind of keep juggling these unlocks with the combat masteries as well, and making sure you just make sure that like once you feel comfortable, do the next one, right? As soon as you hit that threshold, because the combat masteries will just make training all of your skills way, way faster, right? This is absolutely phenomenal. Tier 6. There is no Tier 6 passive bonus, the end. Tier 7. All right, so this is the last tier of passives that we see. XP multiplier is increased from 12x to 16x, okay? Now, this is pretty much my thoughts exactly. More XP, cool, right? Don't forget the combat skills that are the most important that we want to get to 99 as early as possible to kind of max out our combat stats. Those are already getting a 24 XP multiplier boost. At this point with 16x times 2x, this is a 32x boost. Now, don't sleep on this because there is one added benefit. There's usually a lot of league tasks and points associated to getting 25 mil in a skill and 50 mil in a skill. With this 32x multiplier, you're really going to be able to train your combats, especially if you're focused on, like, for example, melee mastery. That means you get to train attack, strength, and defense with like crazy benefits of combat masteries and get 32x XP multiplier, which means you're going to be able to get to that 25 and that 50 mil threshold pretty early on. And I think that's another way to get a ton of points as well, right? So just keep that in mind. It's super phenomenal. Also 16x XP multiplier, this is your max threshold. So now you can, if you want to, just start focusing on like maxing certain skills. At this point, you're really just trying to figure out whatever you want to do to your end game goal. If it is to get points, if it is to make progression, whatever that is, that's up to you. So final thoughts. This time around, we know for a fact that there's at least 7 tiers of relics because we've been spoiled 7 passive tiers. Now, that doesn't mean there can't be 8. As we saw with tier 6, there was no passive bonus there. There could also be a tier 8 of relics where there's 0 passive bonuses, right? So we don't know that for sure, but we know that there's at least 7. The second thing is, I mentioned this earlier, I really like what Jagex has done. Jagex initial thought with leagues was to have like a a progressive linear progression, but that's really not how people kind of play, RuneScape in general. I think there's like a logical chunk progression where, and I'm not thinking of like the chunk Iron Man, but it's like, hey, do these initial like quests to get you into like this area, gets you access to some basic things. Once you do that, people start getting into PVM content, right? Slayer and those grinds and such. And so people kind of hop from like doing some basic quests and skilling to PVM and combat skilling, getting you into the mid game. Once you get into the mid game, you do barrows to get some good items that'll help your progression into the later games and continue that Slayer and monster killing grind. So I think Jagex has seen this pattern and see how that pattern doesn't really align with the linear progression that they had in the previous league system. And so I think overall that's a really good shift, and hopefully this kind of sticks around. Assuming leagues continues on this like monster and PVM focused, trajectory with like bosses like the Echo bosses, I assume we would expect to see these changes in the future. I really like these changes. I also like, the overall combat training and changes, just getting you really fast into the end game, right? Now that said, the league is extended from 6 to 8 weeks, so I don't know how that's gonna affect like how long people play, but I think what this means is maybe you can play multiple accounts and just try out different builds, okay? That might be a really awesome idea. And like I said, PVM being unlocked way earlier, this changed my plan, and this probably just, I want you to think about how this is going to change your plan. I was thinking, hey, I can just get Mauritania as, my third region. So right now I'm thinking Asgarnia, Fremenic, and Mauritania, and that was kind of the order that I was thinking about it, just thinking that like, hey, I don't need Mauritania until the end. I'm sure I'll get to Region 3. That's when I'll get the best drop rates. Now that the drop rates have shifted, Mauritania is definitely going second, maybe even first, depending on how quickly I unlock these relics and these tiers. If I get to tier 4 super fast and I'm going to get to Mauritania, I immediately just want to kind of just start farming barrows and getting those drops, because once I get the barrows items, I can use those to train some combat masteries and then propel my Slayer grind even faster, right? So there's just going to be some things to consider here. I want to know, what your thoughts are. Thank you again so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, smash the like button. If you want to stay up to date with my daily spoiler analysis, definitely hit the subscribe button. And any other thoughts and comments you have, definitely share them below. Thanks for watching.